pick out the teams, both for each other for the flow of the race, and of course for us as well. So they've now got quite a consistent flow across all the different categories with those similar jerseys.
I believe we do see Katie Kookaburra in here as well. She did do
I'm
the
sorry, did you just say Kookaburra?
yeah, Katie Kookaburra.
That's Kookaburra, Nathan, from the Aussie to the American.
See, I don't even hear the difference. I literally don't even like. I literally didn't we just say the same thing? Did I not just say the same exact thing? Livia Barrow coming on through here now, as we do have 13 watts per kilogram. The turbo rider, I said, watch out for the sprint on this one, and there it is, even without the power up. Freebo comes on through at 10.4. That little bit of a kick on the back end, and the maybe is that good timing from the beast mode rider? No, it's not a counter attack. I thought perhaps maybe she was looking to time a kick over the top and give it a go. But Cryogen, this
No,
looks like
I think
maybe...
she just went a bit late, actually.
Yeah, a little late there. That's all that is. But it looks like Turbo able to grab some points, and they're already showing up. And putting Sox Watts on the back foot is a 1 point difference for a playoff position. Sox Watts really need to make something happen. But I think Turbo, they're living up to their name. They really are about the afterburners. They've got the power when it comes to these kind of sprints. And I think Sox Watts are a little bit more of an FTP, give us some climbs type racers.
Watching Tammy Miller, she's an under 23, quite a rising star. I think that's a name that sadly will stop commentating on pretty soon, Nathan, because I think she'll zip up to that Premier League. She'll get picked up pretty quickly if people are paying attention. It's good to see her toward the front, almost just showing a bit of confidence and that she's got some pretty good legs. It was an interesting move, I think, or lack of good timing is probably how we could say it better from beast mode, because I thought what you did, is this a counter attack, is this a really smart way to do it, but in fact I think she just went a little bit too late and then had to decide what to do, but there is some gaps opening up already here. Kookaburra, that's how you say it, Nathan, Kookaburra. A bit of a gap opening up. You've got to be careful because small gaps on this course can really bite the legs. Even if you think it's just a second, it's not going to be too bad. We saw last night, we've also seen this morning, that those gaps do actually open up pretty quickly, causing the heart rates to go pretty high. I mean, look at that, 180 for Kookaburra. That in the first very early kilometres of the race, that is a very high heart rate. So she needs to just grab a wheel, settle in, and perhaps move further up the pack so that when that next sprint happens, she's in front of that gap that will inevitably form and not behind it.
Looking through, you also see a lot of those Sox Watts kits out of that main pack here, having to make some chases. Now, I do not believe that most of these are a part of the main Sox Watts WTF team that is looking to grab those points. I think most of them have made the front group, but that does take a couple of the riders across, a sister team here that would not be able to be involved to steal points or get in the way or help out on a break. So one turbo rider, though, that definitely is somebody that they're going to want to stay involved. That's going to be Curto there coming out of France. So want to get her back into that main pack. I'm wondering if she's struggling at 170 beats per minute. Definitely up toward a threshold situation here for that heart rate. Sitting in, though, allowing everybody else to make the chase, as I don't think that there's going to be too much concern if they do have enough riders up toward the front. Always having everybody involved is good, but they have plenty of riders here still involved for Team Turbo. Looking through for Sox Watts, I am seeing a Despus is still involved here. I think all the main riders are maybe waiting Sox Watts for a second go, see what happens on the first one, and then see if they can take down the fastest segment time. There's still a lot of plays here for Sox Watts, but they're going to have to get on it. If we do look at the, if we can bring in the leaderboards here in just a moment, we might be able to see what's going on with the sprint situation. And what kind of the fastest segments as well as the fastest first across the line, excuse me. But Turbo obviously dominating so far.
Well, if they were to go for target those intermediate sprints from a fastest through segment time, that's where they can get a lot of the sneaky points. So it's not a show of weakness to sit back through that first one and see how it plays out. But you're right, Turbo have kind of thrown down the gauntlet and said, we're here, we've got good legs. What you're going to do about it. Do you reckon that the Socks for Watts teams are working together? How do we feel, Nathan? How do we feel about a bit of inter-team collusion going on? What's the general community feel on that one?
Well, I mean, it's in the a lot of times it's in the rules. So if you can make it happen, it's part of the rules. You can have teams, across that can work together as much as they want. I mean, and the reality is regardless of the branding across, maybe Turbo has talked to Seesaw Race Like a Girl. Perhaps they talked to Draft. So I mean, there is some illusion that can go down across the teams for sure. At the end of the day, Sox for Watts, one of the teams is going to have to fully commit those. So if you spread out your talent too much, one of the teams might end up suffering for it. So there is that part of it as well, where if they were to have too much talent on another team, the main team wouldn't be able to get through. So either way, it's a spreading of resources that team has, and need to make sure that they put it all into a single team as best as they possibly can. But I don't have a problem with the teams working together to try and make something happen at all, because anybody can do that regardless of the brand on their back.
That's exactly right, they can. And it is often we find, especially in the APAC League, there's a whole lot of AHDRL, the Aussie Hump Day rider crews and the ladies crews as well. In the event, sometimes you have 4 or 5 teams per category. And at the beginning of season 1, we were thinking there's going to be a lot of collusion going on. But actually, it turned out to be quite interesting how competitive they were with what you would almost consider a teammate. So I think, they are racers and they did get on their bike to give this a decent go. That's a quick look at the course, and we can see all of those sprints, and they're quite prolific. It is reasonably flat. Now, this is a big move. Baldy has gone early Socks for Watts. This is what we were talking about, Nathan. Are they going for the fastest through segment? Because she's going to give this a crack. Will Baldy hang on over the line? She will. I think that she might also get that segment time. This is a very good move from them.
Yeah,
all of a sudden
Baldy,
they're in the bike race.
Solid, yeah. And that, so Olivia Barrow was second place. Olivia taking the last one for first, but Socks for Watts now first across the line. The segment point, that's going to be a tough one there. I'm going to take a look and see if we got any creams yet. No creams just as of yet from the women's side of things. As soon as we do grab those, we'll get them in for you. But a little bit of a break now. 1 second back. Will they continue on with Socks for Watts with Sheehan? I'm looking through here. Despus is not involved here, so I don't think there's going to be too much motivation from Socks for Watts. But if there is a team that I would expect a move to try and just get away, it would be Socks for Watts. You put Rachel Elliott and Cassie Baldy, Despus into a breakaway, that is danger, and that's a lot of points up the road, and that might be their best bet, is a counterattack here with the likes of Rachel Elliott to just try and demolish this. And Beast Mode, they're just following wheels at this point. They've got such a huge lead. It really seems to be like we said up front, Turbo versus Socks for Watts out there. Draft is still involved. BRT with the Kittens are here as well. We're seeing RCC, so don't count any of those teams out for the day. But the battle here for that second place is going to be the attention for everybody. And everybody's going to really be responding to that battle, I think, out here between Turbo and Socks for Watts, because they're going to be so a part of the instigation to try and make something happen to get the desired outcome that they want.
It's very compelling racing, isn't it? If you did get Rachel Elliott on the move and she had Cutty Baldy with her, that would be a very dangerous circumstance for any other team involved, because simply the time trialing diesel horsepower of Elliott and the explosive sprint of Baldy would be quite a good combination. That would be a great lead out onto Libby Hill as well. I think Cassie Baldy is a lighter rider, so she's got a very good watts per kg when it does come to that 15 seconds. So she's what I would definitely call dangerous going up Libby Hill. She is somebody to put a big circle around with your highlighter. But, again, Nathan, how many times have we said that's someone to watch? But when they do accelerate, when they go, it doesn't matter how closely they're watched. Nobody can really match the power. So that is an opportunity for some other riders who aren't being watched to maybe have a really well-timed jump out of the pack at that same point. Well, all eyes are on the other riders.
Just saw Thorvaldsen up toward the front here as we start looking at some of the play-by-play moves here. Thorvaldsen now 4.1. I saw 1.0 for a second there, so I think she just nosing the wind a little bit more than she actually wanted to. It's going to be a left-hand turn, and I think there is a little bit of anxiousness about this next time through the false flat into the cobbled section, because I think there is a little bit of sting in the legs, a little bit of fatigue at this point here. Kelly now from Z-Sun. It looks like Thorvaldsen now 420 watts per kilogram, 5 watts per kilogram coming from Thorvaldsen. Surprising, actually. They were not the team that I was going to be expecting anything from, but perhaps this is a preemptive setup here for the reality of a Rachel Elliott push on the front. 5.8, I think they're fully expecting something from her, and there she goes into that 5 watts per kilogram, trying to make the race difficult. 5.6, 283 watts, 163 beats per minute right now. But they are sitting on, and I don't think it's going to really... I think it's just making the race difficult. I don't think it's really putting anybody out the back.
I don't think it'll split it up in so far as spitting people out the back, but that constant pressure just really wears on the legs for when they do hit Libby Hill. They started with 73 odd riders, I think it was. Let me just confirm. About 79 riders in the pack when they rolled out, or 85 we have on the rider's screen. A few lessons with power, but look at how small this bunch is now.
30 riders.
So it's easy, yeah, it's easy to actually look at Rachel Elliott on the front and say, oh, she's pushing hard, but this isn't really getting sorted out. But you go to the back and it's quite a different story, isn't it? It is now a third of what it was at the beginning, and they're only coming into the third sprint now. They've only had 2, remembering that they have 5, and then they've got to hit Libby Hill. This is pretty brutal.
It is brutal here, and it's been absolutely demolished from each and every one of these sprints and counterattacks. Beast Mode's been the conversation a lot of times, but it's been super quiet from them. I think they are biding their time, waiting for maybe the right moment for something. You know, what would be kind of fun is if Beast Mode is watching everybody fight for points, and then they're like, okay, everyone's tired out here, let's go for a counter attack for a full-on TTT of orange off the front. We do see the 3-4 orange jerseys here with Wagner. I'm seeing Carolus is in here as well. As we move our way forward through the pack, we're seeing Freibel, who we did see involved in one of the first sprints still. So still 4 beast mode riders who have all been pretty quiet. I would definitely expect that this is a calm before some sort of a storm from them, because being such strong riders and being at the top of the leaderboard as they are in the standings, there's something being saved up here. I would, you know, you got to read between the lines a little bit with how quiet they have been so far. And I have a feeling we're going to see some action from them later in this race.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only thing that would scare me more with beast mode is more scary than them attacking constantly like they usually do is them not attacking, because then you're just sitting and waiting for it when. But they may have learned quite a lot from what the men did last night and had a bit of a chat about it, and this is just their strategy. We definitely know that if they wanted to get on the front attack, that they could cause a lot of damage. So it's they're showing a lot of control. I'm impressed with how much control they've shown so far. Boldy again, Nathan, she hits that line out of the seat accelerating, and it is Wagner. Well, she's a Sydney sprinter from the beast mode who is on it. Cassie Boldy goes backwards. Barrel from Turbo, but Geese from Aeolian. Oh, this is actually, we're starting to get a few new names up here in the mix there. That was interesting to see Cassie Boldy hit out quite early, but not be able to hold on and maintain that. Is that because she was just trying to sit in that top 10 and wasn't fully committed? That is hard to know from just the screen. But that was a very different sprint than we've seen so far. And quite different to what I was expecting, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you do see Ergest here. Solid kick from Cryogen. Miller was involved there, you know, from Cryogen coming on through, but Aeonian able to take down some points there. Barrow, the 2 turbo riders still with the consistency. It did look like, I believe, 2nd and 3rd, maybe 4th. So Turbo, I think, still dominating in the point setup as we get back into the live images now. Every single lap we have seen these sprints do a little bit more damage. Williams from BRT, we saw her struggling at the back end as Elliott pushed, and as you were saying, it does put some sting into the legs each and every time that she pushes on the front end of the pack. And again, another rider bites the dust off the back. Collins also from draft here. Aldi going early with that kick from the feather power up. I think that was mainly the reality of the power up that she had, trying to get the most that she possibly could out of it, and just not paying off because the speed's not quite as high compared to a drafting or an arrow power up that we saw from some of the other riders.
And unexpected because, again, going into this, they didn't expect to have the feather power up. So that has changed the way they may look at them and use them a little bit. Boldy, she's sitting back now, taking a bit of recovery at the back of the pack. I don't want to see her go too far back. It always makes me a bit nervous after a sprint when the good riders who have used a lot of energy through those sprints actually drift too far back. Because we've seen gaps open up pretty quickly. It's an elastic band effect back there. If a 1 metre very easily turns into 10 metres. And even though they can chase it back and get back on, it can be pretty tough. So positioning is more important now than it has been at any point during the race. And we are kind of getting into the polished end, the business end here, because this bunch is smaller again. Dana Wagner, Nathan, I was happy to see Dana Wagner, the Beast Most rider, stick her head out in the wind a little bit in that intermediate sprint. She is somebody that I like for the overall. I think she'd be in a very good position up Libby Hill, and it looks to me like they are playing a pretty patient, conserving tactic. A lot of them sitting as a team. We can see the 4 orange jerseys at the back just sitting together, being very controlled. It's actually a really hard thing to do when you've got good legs in a race, to sit back and let it play out and not really be an antagonist until the end. So a good show of patience from those ladies.
Yeah, it really is. Wagner, the only one that we saw involved really at the front end. Now we do see it looks like another Beast Mode rider making her way to the front. Will we see any kind of concerted effort? And really, look at the size of this group now, as it has whittled down a little bit more. I think there is going to be a little bit more confidence from some of the riders to maybe try and make some moves. I am seeing some blue kits making their way to the front. It's going to be Cryogen now with Rachel Elliott now, again, her favorite part of the course. It goes uphill and makes it difficult. 6.2 again coming from her. 153 beats per minute. Her rate actually lower than last lap. Actually pushes on through. Cryogen sticking to the wheel. It does start to string out. The elastic, will it snap? I don't think so, but again, making things difficult. Sock Swats coming over the top here. WRT, that is going to be Sheehan. Lots of Sock Swats toward the front here. I'm not seeing orange numbers. I think they're going to have to go into some orange number attacks, though. They're going to have some kicks rather than just making it difficult. They are going to get, any kind of distance between them and some of the other teams here at this point. And with Beast Mode and Turbo in here, Turbo, as you can see, still with 4 jerseys in the purple, very easy to spot here. Look at the bike selection as well from Turbo. As we take a look at the pack here, almost every one of them are on what I would call speedsters, like full-on sprinter type bike setups here. As we see Beryl, Orvelson, and the rest, all of them are either 808s, 858s, the supers, and on the specialized Venges, actually. I don't see anything else but that.
I think that's a good bike selection. I think it shows their intention for today, that it is all about the sprint. And again, kind of honouring the power of that final climb up to Libby Hill. I think it's a really good choice overall. A lot goes into the debate around bikes and bike selection. Something that is worth considering is that even in this A category, we can't assume that they're all at the level of Zwifting where they have access to all of those different bikes, because a lot of these athletes will actually be in real life races who have jumped straight into the A category because physiologically they're capable, but they're not necessarily as experienced in game as some of the others. It's always a bit of a balance, isn't it, seeing who really knows the ins and outs of the Zwift world versus who clearly have the legs and the lungs for it. It's always quite a good intersection when it comes, and that often comes out in bike choice, the use of power-ups and all those kind of gamified strategies that come into play.
Fairweather, a little bit of kick from BRT off the front here. That was with a feather power-up. She does get, looks like, a 7-meter, 8-meter gap. Rachel Elliott sitting on the front of the pack at 5.1, just looking to keep that width in striking distance. do see Cassie Baldi is sitting directly on the wheel here of Rachel Elliott. That is ordered to get the draft as best as the setup can possibly go, it looks like. Now, that BRT rider not going to be going much of anywhere, I don't think. Now, Adagast, who did take the last sprint, I think, sitting in, waiting for the moment to pounce, perhaps here. Wagner toward the front, 7.2 watts per kilogram, but it's going to be Barrow again. Olivia, always the sprinter. No power up from her here at this point, from what I can see, though. Olivia Barrow, will she be able to take it without a power up? That would be absolutely amazing. 11 watts per kilogram, and she does so. No arrow, no draft, no feather from what I can see. Maybe we missed an early feather from her, but what a roll through coming from Olivia Barrow.
Well, in the turbo rider, this is exactly what they need. They need those sneaky points through those intermediate sprints. That was, if she didn't use a power up, and we don't think she did, that was quite a show of confidence, wasn't it? That's like really throwing it out there, like, you can throw everything you've got at me, I don't even need it, I've got this. The fact that she accelerated again about 5 meters from the line to 11 watts per kg, I feel like she's just warming up.
You know, it might also have been the Libby Hill on the mind. You know, we are heading into the final few Ks here, and there may be a thought here of thinking, you know, we're going to have one more sprint in just a moment, and I want a certain power up for the final sprint and some confidence, perhaps. But we may have just missed, you know, there might be a lot of assumptions going on here. We may have missed the power up used around the corner and a gain of speed early on, but seeing her not use a power up there, I have a feeling perhaps she has exactly what she wants for the final kick over the top of Libby Hill.
Even if she did use a power up that we missed, it was what was most impressive about the sprint was that she continued to accelerate even with 5 meters left to run. So she still had a lot left in the tank. It's almost as though she's just winding up for that final kick up Libby Hill. That has just put a very big target on her back based on that performance. But I've also noticed Dana Wagner has started to wake up a little bit, and she's starting to get a few points across the line and accelerate a bit more forcefully than we've seen earlier in the race. Cassie Baldi, I almost want to urge her to take a bit of a breather in the next sprint and make sure she heads onto Libby Hill with the freshest legs she possibly can, because she's had some really great sprints today, but she has been active in a lot of them. So this is kind of the time for her to sit at the back, but she does that, doesn't she, Nathan? She sprints and then she heads to the back and gets a bit of recovery, which is a bit of a dangerous spot. All right, now this is interesting. Let's take a look at these segment points because it's Lush Adagast from Aonian. Now, we saw her last sprint take that win, and she's also got that fastest through segment time, which puts her at the top in terms of points. More interesting, I think, from a perspective of how it's playing out between Sox for Watts and Turbo, is Barrel sitting in second for Turbo. Thorvaldsen, she's sitting in fourth for Turbo. Cindy Freeble, she's snuck in there for Project Beast Mode. We haven't seen a lot of her in the wind, so it's actually quite surprising to see how many points she has up there. And then Cassie Baldi, she's sitting back in fifth. We have noticed her be very active in those sprints, but not registering any time, any points there for the fastest through segment. So she's been getting those points by kind of sitting in and ducking off the wheels. Very different sprint profiles, aren't they? So we may actually have to look at Adagast for that final kick up Libby Hill. She is clearly, if she's getting the fastest through segment on the third time through, she's clearly got pretty good legs.
Yeah, and you know, what I'm thinking here with Turbo is that they've really solidified themselves here now in this race. They're currently 1 point ahead in the overall standings with 108 versus 107 with Sox Watts. I think that they need to take as many risks as they possibly can though today, and this is the main reason being is that next week Aonian as well as Project Beast Mode, you know, I wouldn't count out Cryogen as well. You know, there's a lot of teams here that have an amazing team time trial still, And Sox Watts, I think, are a team that are pretty unstoppable. Well, I shouldn't say unstoppable. They are known for having an amazing FTP. They're known for having some really, really consistent riders when it comes to just pure power. And so they've got to put as many points on the board and some distance between them and Sox Watts, I think, before the TTT next week. So we were talking a lot about, who's going to win out here today. It does look like Turbo are making it happen today. Now, can they even distance themselves even more from Sox Watts with, maybe a couple of Project Beast Mode, Aoni and RT obviously at the top here. Put a team between them and Sox Watts get a two-point lead because they may need that going into a TTT against a team like Sox Watts who have such amazing time trial ability.
It's definitely going to be next week on their mind as well. It's easy for us to get caught up in week 7 and everything that's happening out, but their team directors will be looking ahead. They'll be looking at the overall points, at all of the different scenarios. They might have a whiteboard like Anna Russell if they're taking themselves seriously. I wonder how Anna's whiteboard is going. It would look pretty hectic by this point in the season, I would imagine. But they will be keeping an eye on that overall. And there's a lot of if this, then that. If Turbo take the points here, what does that mean for us? If they don't, what does that mean for us? If other teams are performing well. So it is very much a moving strategy. It's not that they set it in stone and then go after it and don't change it at all. The strategies have to be very agile, and as do the riders, Nathan, because really often we're looking at the data, we're looking at what it might say on paper, and we're saying these are the riders who might be successful today, these are their peak powers, but that doesn't necessarily mean when push comes to shove that they're in the kind of form where they can put out those powers. So they're now onto this final sprint, and Nathan, again, it's Turbo pushing it at the front, and Adagaze, the Ionian rider who's got that fastest through segment, she's up in the action as well.
And Barrel again, Olivia is just unstoppable in the sprint. She knows the timing over and over again. Beast Mode tries to come over the top, unable to do so. I was seeing it looked like Casibaldi still in the top 5. She's still able to grab some points here for the rest of the team. RCC now coming through maybe with a counter attack? Is that going to be? No, nothing happening there, it looks like. Will we see a counter there coming on through for Sox for Watts? Perhaps not, as they're waiting for a couple of the riders to get back on turns, actually. So maybe put on the back foot a little bit here. Sox Watts, Shihan, Despas still involved. They have not been dropped. 176 beats per minute, though. And so the heart rate's very high as we look at Despas. Off the back here, McKay maybe done her job. She's going to try and hang on at this point. Helen McKay was involved in that sprint for a top 5 as well. Now, in the men's race, we are just being put on course for the West 1 Division A. As you can see here, they are out on course. We do have some battles happening with Dirt. Team Experimental is in there as well. We'll get a leaderboard as things stand across the league here in just a moment. Really, the battle here is going to be Team Torque, UK Callus, Plastic Acmes are in here, Bike Strong, KTM, and Team Experimental. A lot of old school Zwippers in there. They're going to be heading into their first sprint in just a moment. We actually might be able to jump in with them and watch that as the ladies are heading on over toward Libby Hill. It's going to calm down for a moment as they rest up and wait for that section out on course.
I like that you say it's going to calm down. There's probably a few of them watching the feed, sending some expletives your way right now, Nathan. But you're right, this is the time for them to regroup and get settled again. A big field here for the gents, 101 riders. Will they get through the next couple of laps with such a big bunch? Based on what we've seen so far, I'd say it is unlikely. But it is really early on that this first sprint happens. It is actually the great graphic on the top right of screen where you can see that sprint arch and you think, oh, are they about to sprint for it? In fact, no, they go through, they do that U-turn, and it's out of the U-turn that's where it starts in earnest. So the Plastic Cockneys, they're comfortable at the top of the leaderboard. Team for 2000, Team Tour 2000, pardon me, Kalash, they're also comfortable in second on 110 points. But West Side, and I can't say that without putting my hand in that symbol too, Nathan, I don't know if you're doing that, lucky we're not on screen. Hurricane, aren't too far adrift of them, and the Dynamic Danes. There's still quite a few races happening within. Now that's interesting. Why are all these power-ups being dropped before they've even hit that sprint segment? They are keen beans, this lot.
Yeah, they're really just getting ahead of it, it looks like here. Kim Little, the former UK national champion on the front. This is a rider we've been talking about for the longest amount of time here. Will he hang on? Unable to do so. Some of the new blood out on course taking over, it looks like, with Perrin and Gardel, but he holds on for third. Solid result here for Kim Little. Amazing kick from him. One of the longest time as Rippers. And you know, him and Anna here a little bit, you know, Anna with the headband, but he's going with the
visor.
The visor here coming in from Kim. Loving the look. I think he's had this look for quite a while, and he's on an interesting bike setup here. He's on the Canyon with the 858s and this 859 supers here, and you know, Kim, I think this selection here may have something to do with some of the old school knowledge coming on through. I know him and Casey Shum have really been liking this. Both of them riding for Team Experimental for a long time and been a part of some of the most old school Zwifters here. So interesting picking up that Canyon with the wheel selection, and solid result for third across the line.
I feel like Anna would slaughter anybody for wearing a visor in this kind of race. But lucky she's not here, Nathan, and we get to be the fashion police instead. I think their headgear is probably the least of their worries as they're out there. This pace is pretty high. Again, we've seen a lot of over 50k an hour pushes through here. They're looking at 33.6 odd kilometres of racing, less than 40 minutes for these guys. There really is no point of recovery. If you're not warmed up and ready to go, Kim Little 18 holes after the race. Well, good to see he's got a sense of humour, Nathan.
Typing through over on YouTube at 148, keeping it calm. Always the joke.
With his visor on. I love it.
Absolutely love it. The women still at a very chill section of the course, about to head down the hill. Back in with the men. We do have the start, though, of the West 2 just getting out on course as well for the men. They are just making their way around course. We'll try and jump in with them as well in just a few moments here. As we do have a split screen though here between the men and the women. Women heading on town toward the industrial park. All Grupo Compacto, as you can see. And Rachel Elliott, Turbo with Orvilson. Gonna eat some super tucks here. Getting the heart rates up. Well, 228, 220. I think we've got a little bit of a malfunction there with the heart rate situation. They're coming as 230 comes on through.
Either with the data or with her heart, because 230 would certainly be somewhat alarming, wouldn't it, if your heart rate went to that one. We did see a bit of a drop in power there. I'm glad that her avatar didn't disappear when that happened. So that's good, but it does look like that heart rate's still pretty high there for Thorvaldsen, so I hope she's doing okay if that data is accurate.
Yeah, I think most likely, you know, the way that heart rates do read, it is just an electrical signal, and it can get a little bit of interference here and there between the monitor and the screen. You can see it a lot of times. And now it does drop very quickly right on down. I think there might.
Oh, that makes me feel more comfortable.
Just a little bit of a quick little electrical interference somewhere, just a misreading, as it does. You know, it is an algorithm that's in the devices that is guessing what might be the heart rate from moment to moment, actually, as it extrapolates out. So it's probably just a little bit of electrical interference for somewhere. So Sheehan now Sox Watts on the front. Rhea Elliott now 4.0. This is going to be Sox Watts and Turbo. Seesaw Race Like a Girl. Have not talked a whole lot about them, as we have Tarquino making her way to the front. Watch out for Ellen in the final. BRT Helkins. You know what's kind of cool is we have had a lot of conversation, obviously, about Turbo, Beast Mode, Sox Watts, but you know, the final across line almost always is amongst those that have not been fighting for, as Dave says a lot, the dogs fighting for a bone, and then, you know, they battle, and then at the end of that fight, somebody comes in and goes, hey, you're all tired out, I'm going to go ahead and sneak away with this.
Yeah, that has been fairly across the board, hasn't it? That we've seen a whole set of names going up Liberty Hill that we haven't seen contesting those intermediate sprints per se. I think that there are some names in this front group that if they don't go well up the climb, we can be surprised. Dana Wagner's probably one of them. Cassie Baldy, she might be carrying a bit of heavy leg fatigue after her efforts in the sprint, but she could certainly go well up there. Luce Addergeist. Now, I know that you just said we tend not to see any of those fighting for the bone earlier in the race going up Libby Hill well, but between her consistency of sprint as well as her fastest through segment, she's definitely one that I'm watching. And can we go past Olivia Barrel, given her timing, given her apparent ease of taking those sprints when she has put her mind to it? She's definitely got to be one to watch. And look, she's sporting a very classy little beret there, Nathan. So I think she's for the win in the fashion stakes tonight with that beret barrel, but that will make it quite easy. If you can't see the names and you can't figure out who's on the front, it does make it an easy way to identify her.
She had now 182 beats per minute. She's just trying to make things faster at this point. Thorvaldsen now looking to set up, it looks like. Now Sheehan making her way to the back of the pack as she stuck her nose in the wind a little bit earlier. There's going to be a left-hand turn, a little bit of an uphill kick. It does take a little sting into the legs and gives riders an opportunity right here to bounce their way forward, though, if they do punch a little bit. Rachel Elliott now 5.7, as you do see from her. Doesn't want to find herself in the front there. Olivia, look at how good Olivia is, though, at finding her spot. Did see the Avatar move forward just for a moment and then backed off perfectly to sit right in that second or third wheel. Now it's going to be O'Neill here for the BRT. Kittens there, 129 beats per minute. Very low heart rate. Already an aero power-up, though, coming from one of the riders at the back. That is going to be McKay, who I think is struggling just to hang on at this point. Before he even hit the climb here, Kate.
Well, we keep seeing the power-ups get dropped super early. And it's easy to think, they're doing that. What are they doing that for by mistake? But every time it's been that the pace has just been so high once they hit that KOM and they have just gone through that segment time. We know that it gets really tough here. Even though on screen it looks fairly shallow, it's actually up around the 7% mark in a tick. When they do turn left onto those cobbles, that is where you need to be in the top 10 now. For riders not in the top 10, they will struggle once they do take that left-hand turn. Barrel is on the edge of that top 10. She needs to start sneaking up. Cassie Baldy, great positioning from her. That is brilliant. And Tammy Miller, the young under-23 we touched on earlier, with a whole lot of talent in her bucket. She is throwing it down. This is a great move from the youngster. She needs to get out of her seat now, though, go into that orange, because this is where it's happening. And Barrel on the move, Nathan. Look at her go. Look at this acceleration. She makes it look like they've barely even warmed up. What
Olivia,
an incredible sprint this is.
She's gone. She's just absolutely gone here. 537 watts here at this point. Olivia Barrow just walks away with this one. Miller with the early attack is able to hold on. Adagest here, Aeonian, Wagner from Beast Mode going to be coming in through for third. Massey, Thorvaldsen. Where's Sox for Watts? Just uninvolved, it looks like, really in this sprint at all. This is going to be that TTT. They're going to have to really put all of their chips into that. I mean, at this point, it's going to have to be all in, because Turbo just kind of walked away with this one this week, it looks like.
We get fairly invested in the riders and the teams, right? It's not that we have our biases and our favourites, but we certainly get very invested in the journeys. And the tone in your voice there, Nathan, where's Socks for Watts? It felt quite despondent. Barrel, that was just, we almost saw that coming. Literally 30 seconds before she did that, we said, is she beatable? Tammy Miller, she threw it down at the beginning. I'm impressed. I really think that she is a rider that should have a very big circle around her name from any of these teams that may be headhunting for the next season, because she is an absolute catch. She will keep going.
Timing,
it's funny
Kate,
to watch them race backwards down, isn't it? But when Barrel hit over the top of Tammy Miller, there was no looking back. She's at over 11 watts per kg and not slowing down.
Perfect timing, too, on the feather power up. Taking speed with the feather power up into the steepest part. I mean, I want to just, for anybody watching for the races later in Americas or just how to hit Libby Hill, I'm just going to show this one more time here because a lot of times people will think hit it at the 12, but instead she hit it at this 6.56 and gained speed up to 38.39. It continued through the 14%, carried speed, and allowed her to even have extra speed and be more lightweight through that next section and extend her lead. It's all about speed. It's not necessarily just about watts per kilogram. At the right timings, she ends up with 2 seconds over the rest of the field because of it. Perfect timing here. We talked about it in the sprints as well. We saw her over and over again when it came to timing, taking those down. Miller, as you said, this is a talent to be watching out for the future. Comes across the line there in second. Beast Mode fourth. Leone for third. Solid ride for them. Massey, Thorvaldsen, all over the front end of this race. Turbo, they're showing that they really want it when it comes down to the situation for the Premier Division and battling out with the reality of Project Beast Mode in the playoffs. They're going to have a lot more to deal with, though, when it comes to the rest of the teams because there's a lot of them wanting to get into that Premier Division at the top end of the racing here. So this is the EMEA, and they're showing to be the top 2 teams. Now, it's not settled at this point. Sox Watts, they still have a chance. But Turbo, I think, at this point have really shown that they're going to be very difficult to beat for those that second spot against Beast Mode.
Oh, Turbo, certainly based on what they did today. And not only will look to be going through to challenge for that Premier League spot, but it also looks to me like they are just really building to a bit of a crescendo in this season. And the real nuance of the timing on that final climb by Barrel, where you hit the nail on the head, Nathan, it's not enough to try and accelerate through that 14% section, and it's the second last corner. You can't attack out of that second last corner. You have to attack into it and carry that speed into that really steep section. That is a good lesson for these guys who are now coming into their third sprint, I think it'll be, or it could be second. We'll have to check on that, because that timing, it's as though through APAC and through these EMEA leagues, we've really managed to nail down that timing. The power-ups are being dropped, Nathan. This is where the sprint happens in earnest, and there's some big watts being put down.
Podsy, Mighty Podsaline here. Team Experimental all over the front. 1, 2, 3. Podsaline, Herod, and Kim Little all taking down the best of the points. That might have been fastest across for the segment as well. That was absolutely amazing from Podsy coming from the back. A lot of times when they come from the back of the pack to that final 200 to 300 meters there, the rider a lot of times because of it starting from the sprint section and pulling all the way through at the top speed, will get the fastest segment time. I would not be surprised if Podsaline made that happen. Great lead out from his teammates. 1, 2, 3 Team Experimental have shown up on the day. And, I think this may be it's kind of cool to see West Side here, 99 points. I have a feeling they were hoping that maybe they had a few more races like this where they had sprint point situations, a lot more. They're really great in the TTT. They just haven't been able to make it happen when it came to the punchier races up against the likes of Tortuque Callis as well as Plastic Octanes. They do have a pretty good buffer over the top of Team X West Side. But they're showing up in this last couple of weeks with some solid effort.
This course is really bringing out kind of the sassier riders that are prepared to really have a go and give it a crack. It's also giving them the opportunity to try something on one sprint. If it doesn't work, they can either try again or mix it up for the next lap. And to me, it's a bit more exciting and more dynamic than some of the other courses where they've almost been a little bit intimidated by the climbs to come. This is being one of my favourite so far, and a finish on a classic hill like Libby Hill. Of course, there's a lot of romance in that as well. I think that's a beautiful way to finish this kind of race. But they do have a very big bunch still, which is good. That's a good chance for them to recover after they do make those big sprint efforts. But a big team effort from Team Experimental, Nathan. It's to do a good lead out like that. Podsaline was obviously able to finish it off with quite a lot of style and pizzazz. They don't want to burn too many matches though early on, but I feel like they're smoothing out that lead out, and if they can get him into a position and so that he can jump over the top of them coming into that second to last corner up Libby Hill, that is where the team could really come in handy and be. It wouldn't be a secret weapon. I think everybody knows what's going on, but certainly a weapon.
Yeah, and Podzy, I think he's been a long time sprinter and rider out on Zwift. He's going to be one to watch out for because of his prowess. I mean, the entirety of Team Experimental Westside, this being one of the longest standing courses, they're going to be very familiar with this course. So that is going to give them a huge advantage, I think, coming into each one of these sprints. You've seen it over and over again. You had a question going into that 180-degree turn. Why are they opening up so early? What's going on here? But it's the timing around there that I think these riders are just absolutely used to. I think they're going to know Libby Hill very well and how to ride it. Podzy now on the attack, actually, into this false flat. Now there's a lot of feather power being used here. And you know why that's being used here at this point? It is the point of the course where you get the most out of it on this section. If you're a rider who's not that interested in the sprint, you're just supposed to hang on. You use it on this little uphill gradient, reserves a little bit of energy. The whole pack comes right back on together. Podzy gets shut right on down, regardless of any attacks he does have on the front. So a lot of feather power being used on the only uphill section or the flat sections of the Richmond course.
With such a big bunch, it would be a very tough ask for any break to stay away. That'll change the dynamics because less teams are likely to even go after that kind of strategy. It does make it very on again, off again when they do sprint at such high powers and high speeds for those intermediates, and then they back it off a little bit. That can actually hurt the legs quite a lot going into Libby Hill. Sometimes, Nathan, we see some riders sitting back and looking after themselves early on in the race, and we think, gee, they might really be up for a big finish here because they haven't been too active and wasted too much energy in those intermediate sprints. But often with this kind of on again, off again dynamic race, by the time they do go to accelerate and use that power, their legs just don't really feel it. They don't really have it. And I think the names that we're seeing in that top 10, but not necessarily the one or two, with the exception of Olivia Barrel, in all of the other divisions, those winners are coming from that top 10. So they're up there and they are definitely stretching themselves. They're just not overextending by trying to take a win.
And Podzy here now, as we do see 4.8 watts per kilogram coming from him, just sitting in, getting a little bit of recovery. You can see Tortuga Callis here. They're going to be the second overall in the series right now. Plastic Cockneys, that's going to be in the black and yellow kits. One of the things that is on the line for the Premier Division are in-game kits. So a lot of times our questions comes on through from a lot of the esports teams that are out there in the community. How do you get your kit in game? How do we get our kit in game? One of the ways that you can do it is by winning entry into the Premier Division. The top 3 teams from the playoffs will be going into that. The top 2 teams from this league here that we are watching right now, this region, will be going up as well, specifically in this division. There are 14 men's teams across the board that will be making it into those playoffs, and the top 3 from them in those playoffs will be earning in-game kits. And I think the Plastic Cockneys are looking for that as they're sharing the same kit with another team out there today, as Kim Little again. Oh my goodness, that's the 3rd sprint through. Second one he takes down, and that might be, we're gonna have to wait and see here. That's a new fastest segment here. I'm gonna try and get the fastest segment updated here, because the up-to-date segment points here at this point. But Kim Little's been coming through pretty fast, and I'm a little surprised that not able to grab that. But again, first time through, a lot of times those first couple of times through, the pack is just absolutely flying and really fighting for it. And that speed, it really can snowball on top of each other. Joachim Klusmer's off the back. This is an FTP rider that's got a solid, high, steady power. I think he's going to get back on terms, though, it looks like. Not your sprinter type, that's for sure.
Now, Kim Little also right down the back, so he needs to scooch his way forward a little bit there to make sure no little gaps open up in front. he's just warming up in those sprints. He'd be a good one for Libby Hill, but he does need to save a little bit of energy. I do think we do need to update those segment points to get a bit of an idea, because Podsy, there he is in 5th. It's hard for an Australian mouth to say Podsy. It doesn't come out very well. You make it sound so easy, Nathan. But he is sitting there in 5th. So he did a decent through segment time as well as a decent over the line there as well. But the sheer volume of these sprints ends up painting quite an interesting picture. And Nick Hart, we haven't even mentioned him too much. He got some points while we were actually watching the finish of the women's race, but he's sitting pretty up the top there on 40 points, which is very significant. Gardle's sitting in 2nd on 34 points, and they've both done it in different ways with those first over the line and fastest through segment. But Kim Little, now that that's been updated, he has moved up into 3rd, so he's probably been the most seen rider on that sprint board. Again, sometimes what you're seeing on screen and the results going across, they don't seem to marry up, and that is because of that fastest through segment, those massive bonus points, because that is Hart and Gardle. If you remove that fastest through segment, it is Kim Little who has been the most prolific in scoring points in a first over the line basis.
Looking here real quickly, Team Tour 2000 Calais not super involved in the points so far, interesting enough. We do go back to the creams and get an idea of how that's playing out here. You know, it really is, where are they? I mean, it's only Charlie Revel really with 8 points at the bottom. And with so many teams in between, Plastic Cockneys, SC, SDW, there may be a little bit of risk. And look at how many points Team Experimental are racking up here. They're probably the leaders on the board at this point, as Zach Herod with 10, Joachim Plusmer's there with 14. We're looking at Podsy there at 20. We're seeing Kim Little there at 26. Plastic Cockneys, they do have, it looks like, Tom Wiley as well. I believe maybe Milk is going to be right after, and then Perrin there at 24. But I do believe currently Team Experimental, the leaders on the day. Going to be a tough ask here, perhaps, especially with the experience that we've been talking about. I think Adzeline here was resting up perhaps for this next time through. They are going to be looking forward to Libby Hill if after this sprint and the reality of what it seems they're bringing to the line so far, Team Experimental, with this overall current standings as well. I don't know if it's possible though. Plastic Cockney, not Plastic Cockneys, but the other teams out here with Tour 2000 Calais, they're going to have a really bad day on the day, because it is a solid 11-point difference. We've seen it happen before, but they would have to be pretty far down the leaderboard, and Team Experimental take the win today and a win in the TTT next week. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the chances are very slim.
Yeah, well, it becomes a lot of things have to happen for that to play out. So the odds are not good. Yes, it is possible, but as you fairly mentioned, there's a big difference between possible and likely. It's a much smaller group, Nathan. It has whittled down. They started with 101, but we have shrunk that a fair bit. That's something that we've noticed this course really tends to do. And if you're only watching the front of the bunch, you wouldn't even notice, because it just looks like there's a big spread out blobbed bunch across the road. But actually when you get down the back like we're looking at now, you notice that bit by bit people are coming back on 1, 2 at a time, because it has strung out. There are little groups that are left chasing, and even if it's a gap of 1, 2, 3 seconds, it all makes a difference. So they'll go into this U-turn, they'll drop those power-ups, head into that sprint line. This is the final sprint before they do head out to Libby Hill. This is the last chance for them to get some points and maybe challenge that segment time. The power-ups start getting dropped. Where is Kim Little, Nathan? Who will be the antagonist today?
Yeah, interesting enough, Zach Herod sitting in, not really that interested. I was staying on him because I thought perhaps there was going to be a move from him. But at the front end, it is going to be Nick Hart again. Amos there as well. Actually, Kim Little taking. It looks like Kim is just unstoppable today. Across the line first place. I mean, this has been an absolutely dominating performance here coming on through from Kim Little. I'm blown away. And, you know, a month and a half ago or so, I saw Kim, a couple of messages come on through in the first week even, you know, oh, well, we're ramping up. I'm starting to get on it again. Got a couple of DM, private messages, DMs from him saying he's starting to train again a little bit here. And look at it paying off into the 7th week now as he seems to be back on form and dominating in the world of Zwift again. Again, this is a former UK national champion of Zwift, has earned that kit in game in previous years. He's been a competitor to the point that he's showed up to so many of the in real life events for qualifying for them in the arena events as well. So be on the watch out. Team Experimento, it looks like, on the rise again to try and take down the world of Zwift Racing League.
He's certainly been a very consistent face out there today. And look, he's just warming up for his 18 holes on the golf course later with that little cap on his head. Libby Hill would definitely suit him and his strengths, but he's put a lot out in these intermediate sprints, so time will tell whether or not he still has the legs to do that. It looks like Kalash, the Tour 2K, is starting to move up. They've been fairly inactive thus far in these intermediate sprints, which has been quite interesting, but perhaps they are just now positioning for that final run-in. It is about 34 kilometres in total. The last 800 metres odd is when it is actually the steepest and hardest section. So it's not too long a climb. It's definitely not out of reach for the power and sprinters, but it's more the accumulation of the intermediate sprints that's been doing the damage. But they will get a bit of a flat run in here and then a little bit of a descent. Let them get a little bit of recovery before it is very much the business end of the race.
It does look like we do have Navy cycling up toward the front now. 427 watts real quickly here from Revo. Looking to set up. Or 2K Callus. This is the second overall. Team Italy now, it looks like, also trying to take over the front. Dirt Wolfpack. Been pretty quiet so far. Always loving the dirt kits, though, for sure. W2L, it looks like, now moving forward. Another race that is currently going on is going to be the West 2, EMEA West 2 A1s. There's quite a battle happening over there as well with OVB, Socks for Watch, Cryogen, Restart is in there, as well as Fusion Dev, Skylab with the likes of Caleb Carl, as well as the CMI UCI team. That was the Simon, actually, Green, who is giving a little bit of shout out to his team. That is going to be the team that he's most likely watching. We'll try and jump on over there for a look at how things are playing out with that Skylab team, as well as the OVB and the battle that's happening there between all of them for that top spot in the West 2 as we